Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Wait a While podcast. Mike Lello from Highway 81 Revisited Music Blog with you, along with AJ Jump from Carl Hall in Wilkes-Barre, PA. And we have another great special guest today, Russ Lawton, wonderful drummer.
Hey,
and
thank you.
Russ, known to many for his longtime association with Trey Anastasio from Phish, and he is the drummer for Trey Anastasio Band, also known as Tab. So,
yes.
I wanted to start out with something a little bit heavy, but one thing I've noticed just when you go to see Tab, you look up there and you see several generations, different colors, different types of people from all over the country. So I know we're going through a lot of stuff right now that's pretty difficult, but how does that kind of impact the way you guys communicate and, the way you guys all get along, being from like totally different backgrounds in some cases?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, you definitely like the first, I guess, is it's like the age difference, right? I mean, Jennifer started touring with us. I think she was 18, and I was already like 45 or something like that. So we're all in it together. We all get along. We have the same kind of views. I mean, obviously, we go off in our different directions too. The horns, maybe that's kind of the same age group a little bit more. And then I've known Tony for like 40 odd years. So, but we all get on, we all love each other. It's like it's really cool. But I guess I related to it. I joined this band. That's how I got to Vermont, and this band called Zzebra. And we used to play a lot in Pennsylvania way back in the days. But I found out the leader of the band was like my father's age, and he didn't look like it. But I was like, what? And it just was like, it makes me think of that now. It's just like, whatever, we're all, it's music brings people together, and it's cool.
Right.
That answers the question, but
yeah. I even know AJ. I mean, you were playing with people a lot older than you too. I mean, AJ went to Berkeley too, so he's used to being around people his age or mentors older. So AJ, did you? I mean, what about that mentorship? I mean, AJ, I know you've had a few guys that have kind of taken you under their wing a little bit over the years.
Yeah, I mean, I've still been, I'm almost 36 years old, but that was sort of the tail end. I was brought up studying jazz, and I would hang with my teacher, and he would, I'd go to gigs with him in New York City, and take guys back to the airport and things like that. I got to hang with some pretty amazing, incredible musicians, at the age of 18, 19, 20, 21, and that apprenticeship thing, I don't know if you had that as a kid, Russ, or your father or your uncle or someone like that inspired you in that way. But, that it was pretty cool to have that. And that's sort of comes from a little bit more of the jazz world, than the pop music world. But yeah, I was always, around older people. When I was younger, I just kind of had to grow up fast, and it really, it helped me mature musically.
Oh, it's great. I mean, you read about that a lot. Different people. Look what like somebody like Art Blakey did. He always would get like the young players, and it's really cool. And you learn from everybody. I mean, the horn section and the tab bands. Like, I'm definitely I feel like the rock guy. You know what I mean? I kind of grew up in bands or whatever, and that's been my strength all the years. But that's my part of my drum sound, I think, though, too. And they're from a different school, more schooled musicians or whatever, But
what were your early beginnings like? When did you start playing? What was your early development like?
Well, I started in the drum corps when I was like 11 years old. I was in the drum and bugle corps out of New Bedford, Mass, which is not kind of south of Boston. Mm-hmm. And but once I got a drum set, it was kind of like I really lost interest in the drum corps. They used to rehearse like down the street from my house. I fished to see them with that. Then I joined, and then just banged away, And it wasn't until I got out of high school that I really got serious about it. Then I started studying with this guy from taught at Berkeley, Gene Roma. I don't think he was there I don't know when you went there, but he was on his own with his Newton Percussion Academy thing. But it was really, I took lessons at his house. And from there, I moved to Boston in search of to do original music, And then moved up to Woodstock, New York for a year because it was a place called the Creative Music Studios there. which is really cool. I think what's the drummer from Medeski Martin and Wood, Billy Martin. I think he's starting it up. I think he's starting it up again. Cyril was telling me, if I'm not mistaken. But I never got to go there because I moved to Woodstock, and then the next year I got this gig in Vermont. My Vermont connection with this African guy, Lofty from this band Zzebra, who married a woman from Vermont. So he came from London. He, how funny how things all end up sometime, But that guy was my education too, because he's being a percussionist. I learned so much from him, But from there, just practicing a lot over the years and being in original bands. I've always done creative music. And
so did that connection in Vermont, did that lead to Zzebra? Is that where that came from?
Yeah, well, it's one of those things. It's like I met this singer when I was living in Boston. He went to Middlebury College in Vermont, and then when he met the percussion, it's like, so hey, I know this drummer that would really fit the style. So I came up and auditioned and got the gig. So I moved to that's how I got to Vermont. So it's like wherever the music takes you, It's like I had never even been to Vermont. I had just started doing traveling in bands. I think New Hampshire, just But I came up,
Oh, sorry. So what was the makeup of Zzebra? Was it like a larger ensemble, or what was this?
Yeah, it was guitar, bass, drums, keys. Lofty played percussion and saxophone, and we had a trumpet player for a while. But once he left, we just kept it more condensed. We didn't, But yeah, it was amazing. I mean, look up those. I've been talking about this for 40 odd years, but he was in this band Zzebra. Well, I used to buy their records, so when I got the call, I was like, "That guy is in Vermont. I'm going up there and checking this out." And it changed my life. It was really like a monumental thing because I was living in Woodstock and around all these bands. Like I used to work at this place called the Bear Cafe right by Bearsville Theater, and I see all these like famous musicians, and I would go to these shows and they'd be hanging out, and I was really trying to aspire to be I used to see Paul Butterfield every day because I worked at the Bear Cafe. I would see it. He'd be there every day. And Albert Grossman, the manager, he owned the place. I mean, these people I worked for, they managed it or, rented it off Albert. But I would see all those people every day. I never forget going into the Bearsville Theater and hey kid, we need a broom. I was like young, and I go in there. There's Todd Rundgren with Utopia rehearsing, and I'm like looking at all this like gear. I was like, whoa! It was like I was a young, impressionable kid, And then this place, called the Joyous Lake. It was like the local club, and like so many musicians would be there. I saw so many drummers. Roy Haynes would be playing. Jack Jeanette would be sitting in, and he lived up the street. I see him just coming in the restaurant. I cooked him burgers a couple times, but that's a long time ago. But yeah.
So I mean, would you see a guy like that, especially a fellow drummer, would you like try to go up to them and talk to them, or like how did you handle that when you'd see one of your heroes?
I was too shy. Even like I remember going into the Joyce Lake and seeing this band called Stuff. Never heard of them before, and I'm seeing this drummer like, wow, that kind of looks like Steve Gadd. And I've been listening to him with like Chick Corea and all like the more Al Di Meola stuff. And I'm going,
yeah. But
I don't know if you know Stuff, but it's purely just a groove. Amazing band, but it was I'm like, oh, okay. So like I said, I would say I should have gave him $100 for a lesson right there. And then he did a solo, and still it wasn't the blazing solo. I mean, it was his style. It was amazing. But I used to go. I get out of work and I go right to the Joyous Lake and see like Gil Scott Heron. And I remember one time sitting down. I was like, "Hey, can I sit here?" And it was like Dr. John. I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" And I was like, "Whoa." I wasn't. We talked. He was a nice guy, but whatever. That's
Yeah.
It's a funny. I think about that place all the time. I just read that book, Small Town Talk.
I was just going to tell you, I'm reading that book now. So you're talking about, so you're talking about all these people, and Butterfield was like kind of crazy, and like all this stuff going on, and Robbie Robertson, and I didn't even know Todd Rundgren had a Woodstock connection, and he was running the studio,
lived there.
And like,
Well, it's in the book. I don't know if you got that far yet, but yeah, Albert really loved Todd, and he started producing. I used to see, as a matter of fact, in the book, he talks about that Albert bought him this fancy car. I remember that car. It was like a blue, it wasn't a Tesla, but it was some kind of one of those high-end. I wasn't chicken soup, man. Like all these guys. I was like 21 years old. I was like, whoa, it's like really pretty intense. Just like whatever. I can go on all day. It was like the most amazing year of my life of seeing music just right in my back door. It was like living in the city, but you weren't in the city. You know?
Yeah. How old were you then?
I was 21.
Okay. Yeah, that's a lot to be around at that point.
Yeah, because before that I was in Boston, and Boston hadn't quite taken off yet. Like the next couple of years, the punk thing and the new wave thing kicked in. That's when I went back, like after, you know, I joined Zzebra. We moved to LA actually, and I was in the front lines there. But after that, the band, you know, stopped playing after 4 years, and I moved back to Vermont, got a band, then we moved because the Boston scene was, you know, really taking off. You know, so, and it felt that was a good happy medium between New York or LA, you know.
So you were playing with Tony Markellis before the two of you started playing with Trey, right?
A little bit. I mean, we were on the same circuit, Zzebra, and he was in this band called Kilimanjaro. We would play at this place, Hunts, and we'd have our little set gigs every once a month, like, pretty much. And so we had there's always been a scene in Burlington, you know.
Yeah.
And then so they'd call me. I'd be in Boston, and like they were looking for a drummer, but I was always with my band in Boston. We got signed. It's like the we just got signed to like Columbia Records, and then the record it doesn't come out or whatever, you know. But I was always working on some things. So, and then when Tony told me about the Trey band, by that point I was freelancing, and I was playing with Gordon then too, but I started playing with Gordon.
Right.
But
so,
I was, you know, very, very dedicated band guy for a long, long time.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, were you playing were you working solely as a drummer from, you know, your mid to late 20s, you know, into that time, or were you doing some odd job stuff and playing a lot and, you know, gigging obviously? And when would you say, you know, were you always strictly just a drummer, or was it a lot of shortcomings up to that point then when you got a break, you know, playing with Trey?
Actually, I held out from the time I was like started practicing, like, you know, 8 hours a day. I moved back to my parents' house for like a year, then moved to Boston, and then so that was a couple of years. It just like then I moved to Woodstock, and I was working at the Beer Cafe for like a year, and then I didn't get a job after that. Probably, because I was in Zzebra. Probably I didn't get a job till I moved to outside of Boston. I lived in Salem, Mass. Then I got married, and my wife was working in some restaurant, and I work all week at some little temp job, and she's making one night what I made all week. So I started waiting on tables, and I ended up being a bartender for like 15 years. But it fit into my schedule. Like, hey guys, I got to go on tour. Okay, see when you get back. You know what I mean? You hear all these guys say they got to go on 3-week tour, and they lose their job because of it. So
yep.
But you know, but what I would do, I wake up. It was cool because I'd wake up, practice all day, and you go to work tired, opposed to working all day and come and trying to practice. You know what I mean? It was the opposite. It fit into my schedule. And the other, like I only worked 3 nights a week or something. You could work, you know, 3 shifts and make good bread, you know. But it was a really good balance, actually. I you know, by the end, I kind of hit the wall doing it, but you know, but it was, you know, it was good. It wasn't a bad thing. You know, it's better to have a little money than like totally starving, you know.
Well, that's kind of what you see nowadays, you know. Certain younger guys think that like there's this machismo thing about, oh no, I have to be a musician full time and just tell people, oh, I do this full time, or, you know, and then you get some, you know, more seasoned guys. I have friends. I lived in New York for a while. I lived out west for a while, and you know that they have their one gig that tours, you know, 3 or 4 times a year, and then the rest of the time they're either waiting tables or they're you know, tending bar. And it's like you realize I got to a point in my life personally where I would rather do that than take some really crappy cover band gig just to keep playing. I felt, no, I only want to play the music I really want to play, or play some cool like old country or jazz gig. But I don't want to, you know, play in some weird Atlantic City cover band just to tell people that I'm a full-time drummer, you know. And I think a lot of people get it twisted, and it's good for people, you know, to hear people like yourself say, you know, I had to make bones other ways, and then I got a great break. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's good, and especially it wasn't 40 hours, but and you meet people. It's a whole other side of my life. People still get in touch, and it's like, wow, it's really nice. But at the same time, what I was going to say was, when I didn't have a job, I still practiced a lot, but I practiced just as much as when I had that bartending gig. You just got to work a lot harder. You know, you can sleep till noon. Like, you know, if you're going to be at work at 3, you're getting your ass up. At least I was, and getting some coffee and hitting the drums and working on stuff. And then I'd come home at 3 in the morning sometime and still put it 15, 20 minutes in, just like on my pad, whatever, you know, just keep. I still do that, but it makes sense. Little money coming in, because I've been broke. I've been pretty broke before. It's not. Yeah, exactly. We all have. Yeah, we all. But income streams, and even like now I teach and stuff, and I love it. You know, I teach. I definitely do a fair amount of teaching. Now all the gigs are gone. Now it's like, I should have been flying home from like wherever today. Tab had a 3-week tour or something. But you know, and you know, I enjoy teaching and whatever. It's a trip. Keeping at it.
How did you initially get connected with Trey, and were you familiar? I mean, just being in Burlington, you probably couldn't help but be familiar with him and Phish. But like, how much did you know about what he was up to musically, and when you connected with him?
Well, I knew Phish, and my first, I wasn't living in Vermont. It's kind of like when he moved to Vermont, I left. That's kind of what Burlington's like. It's a very kind of transient town. So I've been hearing about them. And then we played at this club in Boston called the Paradise. It's like holds 500 people. And that's a classic Phish story, right? And then we played there a week before those guys, and we drew okay. And they sold it out. I'm like, what's up with this Phish band, man? That's good for them, you know? And then I was working at a record store then too a little bit. And then the albums are coming, and I was checking them out, and I was really, you know, really liking what I was hearing. It was like really good. And my friend actually I think he was like assistant engineer on the that first major label one. I can't think maybe at the top of my head, but you know, with and so I was hearing the stories. But Tony, I knew Tony for so long, you know, and then so when he was looking to play with Tony, he goes, well, who do you want to play drums? Because it was the bass player drummer relation. Because let's try my buddy Russ. And also too, he was looking for a little bit of that Afro influence, Afro beat, and he goes, well, Russ played in this band for 4 years, so let's give it, you know, let's check him out. And it clicked, man. I was very lucky, you know. But then you take all those years of doing all those original music, and it's like, well, you got some beats. I'm like, yeah, I've been writing this. You know, you've got something to bring to the table a little bit, and felt very fortunate that he's such a great, you know, amazing collaborator, and just sort of, you know, I always said that, you know, listen to what he did. I'm like, whoa, it's like First Tube or something, you know, it's like incredible.
Yeah, you mentioned First Tube, and you know, I know you, Tony, and Trey, I think, were the core that wrote a handful of songs that ended up being the Phish album Farmhouse. So like, were you working on those songs for like Tab, and then they became Phish songs, or how did that happen?
Yeah, we did a 99 tour. What happened, we played in 98, then 99 we did like one gig at Higher Ground. Then they wanted to do a tour, so that trio tour we did at May of 99, and then we played a lot of those tunes, Sand and First Tube, a lot of those, you know, songs, and that's, we ended up putting them on the Farmhouse album, you know, because I gave him some grooves, but he did all the, you know, it's his writing, you know, it's really amazing. So it was really fun because I write a little bit too, but not like him, but you know, like I do that with Ray. I was just at his house a couple days ago. I get this new groove, and see if we can hash something out together back and forth. It's cool. The collaborative thing is a beautiful thing.
One thing I really liked about when you were playing with Gordon Stone is there was a couple tracks that you sang on, and I think there was one called Light. There was an album called Red Room, and those were to me like some of the highlights of the set. Like that was really cool.
Oh, thank you.
So and it was Rudy on bass. I really loved that band. Like when that band would come to Wilkes-Barre, to me it was like, you know, somebody coming to the arena or something big. What was that? That was a really cool group. Like what are your memories of like that particular trio anyway, with those two guys?
Well, again too, I mean, Gordon, there's some roots that I met him in like 1980 when I came back to Vermont, and then they started this like kind of new wave band called the Decents. They got pretty big up here. And then I did a couple of gigs at the end of that. And then at the end of that run of that band, then everybody kind of moved. He stayed in Vermont. We moved to Salem and Boston. And then God, it was like 98. So what is that? Like, you know, man, it's like a long time later, he had finally started doing his own band. He did a couple of albums before that Red Room. And then they said they were going to expand. Before they were just an acoustic trio. So, and I knew Gordon from before, and he you know, he played in Zzebra for a little bit too. So you know, it all interconnects. But so what was I getting at? But so we ended up doing that trio, you know. And then that was really fun, you know. And
it's pretty wild because, you know, most people in the, you know, that follow Phish and such know you as, you know, from the Trey Band. But like Mike said, you know, I didn't even know Mike then. We're both from the same town. He lives in New York now. I live back in PA, but all over the place. And we were both at the same shows when Gordon played, but we didn't know each other at all. But then years later, we talked about, you know, and I started playing drums when I was about 11, and that was when I was 15 and 16. So only a couple of years later, and I was like really into jazz, and I was into Phish, and so you were one of the first guys that I really got into playing.
man.
And I knew you from Gordon's band, not from Trey at all. And then when I heard that, you know, I remember, I will never forget, I believe it was David Letterman that I think you played as just the trio though, or was it a trio? You were the trio, but it was trio and then just the horns.
Yeah, well, that was the first one. That was not Letterman, but oh God, what was it? It might have been Conan.
Conan. Okay, because I was also a huge, when I was in high school, man, I still do. It's not the same anymore, but I love late night TV, and like it was just so amazing to like see you at the Scranton Cultural Center and see you at Murray's, and then I'm watching my favorite late night TV show, and you know, and you've played with people that I've played with, about Justin Mazer, great guitar player.
Yeah, I love Justin.
Yeah, I've played hundreds of gigs with him over the years too as well, and you know, but it's just neat that like I saw you play with Ray at the River Street Jazz Cafe like 2 years ago, I believe, with Soul Monday, and I was, Justin sat in with you guys, and we had a little conversation after that, and I said, I've been seeing you play since I was 15 years old, and I'm 34 now, and you said, oh man, you're making me
I remember that. Yeah, I know. That's what I mean. Time flies by, but you're still at it. So it's pretty cool, you know.
Yeah, and we have to give a shout out to our Mike and I, our good friend Pappy from Cabinet. He's the one that connected us with you. Pappy's the best. He's such a great guy. I've known him for years as well, and used to play his festival at Montage, Susquehanna Breakdown. You know, it's too bad you didn't get. Did you ever get to play the Susquehanna Breakdown or no?
No, I've heard about it. But because I've got to know Pappy by living up here now, so it's great.
Yeah.
I love Pappy.
He's the best. Great dude.
Yeah. So that's great. I mean, that was a really good, you know, that whole, because when I started playing with Gordon, I knew about the Phish scene, but I didn't really know. Like I remember we played at this place, the Middle East in Cambridge, and it was like opening band. We like the middle slot. Then it was a slip, and I was just like, "What's going on, man? This is like a lot of like hippie kids." And like I'm doing, because I grew up in that area, and I'm like, "Wow, man, this is like really cool." And it was definitely like, after being in like rock bands in Boston, I really felt like I found more of a home with this, you know. And then it was really cool. It you know, it was like, because it's tough. I never got jaded, but like definitely I got pretty beat up. You know, by that time you know, labels and management and stuff, and bands breaking up, and you know, almost there kind of stuff. It's not that I strive to be famous, but just try to be creative and maybe put a record out and maybe get a little notice with that or something.
Yeah, give us a little rundown of what you're working on now. I know you have the duo with Ray. There's another thing with Scott Metzger too, right?
Yeah, we have an album. We call it Lamp. You know, Lawton, Metzger, and Patchkowski. but yeah, that's going to be coming out soon. We just did one video and released one single, and then we were planning on doing some gigs, but because of what's going on, nobody's gigging. But we're supposed to be maybe doing a live listen this week. We're waiting for the final word, but we're excited about that, and it's great. And man, we did that album. Oh God, that was like we're talking about that. We did another podcast. We just traded same thing, traded beats. He had stuff, Scott had stuff, Ray had stuff, and went in rehearsal one day and then banged out a record. I think that we did 3 days, and I think the third day we just did one other song and a few maybe overdubs or something, but fixes. But yeah, it's really great having him. I mean, because Ray and I have been playing together for years, besides just with Tab too. So
is there any?
Scott's an absolutely incredible player. I'm fortunate to play a couple gigs with him a couple years back, and he's one of the best guitar players I've ever played. I play with a lot of guitar players, but he is just, his sound, his approach, everything, the way he listens to everything. He's just absolutely an incredible musician and a great guy too.
Yeah, I agree. Because what he listened, when I went back and when I go back to listen to the record, I'm like, wow, it's like there's never nothing like, why did he do that? You know what I mean? Some guys just start getting a little scaly or whatever, but it's like, oh, get like this one needs it. Add some little. It's just good. It's just good playing all around, like listening, and wow, yeah, I think it's amazing. Absolutely. I'm really proud of that record. I'm like. When I listened to it a while back, I'm like, we actually did this, man. Because I was a little nervous going in the studio. I thought we would do something fine, but it was like, okay, here we go. We're plopping down, some money to record here, and we don't really know each other, but it was good.
Sorry.
Sorry.
There's a photo on your website. I was flipping through the photo gallery, and it's Trey with this big grin on his face, and he's holding up a busted snare drum on stage. So what's the story there?
Well, it's we were playing at the Ogden in Denver, Colorado, and it's I never break heads. I'm not that much of an animal, but there's these, and I apologize to Aquarian, but the Aquarian heads do not like the cold, and you bring them in. So what happens? They're in the truck, and it's cold. It was winter. It was a winter tour, and it comes in, and then they just split. So that's what happened with that one. So it was like, I was like, wait a minute, I need another snare. And that's the first and last time that's ever happened. It could probably happen again, but I've had problems with them with other bands, not on a big tour, just like playing at a rehearsal, like, what? How come this, the head's brand new or something, just the chemical makeup of that went to make them. But he was like, give me that drum. I'm like, he was psyched that I think that I broke it or whatever.
I mean, with the band, when there's so much sound coming off the stage, horns and keyboards, guitar and everything, do you have to hit harder to cut through?
You do, but I've learned over the 20 odd years to like get a little more zen, like you calm down more, but you still, I'm definitely hitting harder when you're playing live, like definitely in that level of size places. But I have an incredible monitors behind me, 2 big bass bins and a couple of high-end ones, but you do. When I come back from tour, a couple of times, it's like, whoa, I'm playing in some little club, and but I just, before I would really, I'm just like flipping out the wrist and just trying to pull the sound out of the drum, But there's definitely an endurance, and definitely I exercise. I really figured out a long time ago. I do the stairs. I'm not a big gym guy, so I just, in hotel rooms, I go up as many floors as I can. I'm shooting for 30, 40 floors a day or something. And do some push-ups, and that helps a lot.
Yeah, you gotta keep in check sometimes, depending on the music you're playing, right? You gotta keep the cardio up, especially like long sets, higher tempo tunes, things like that. I mean, and like you said, the monitors are key. If you have good monitors, you don't have to lay into things or feel like you have to lay into things.
Yeah.
You don't.
Yeah, have you learned how to lighten up and be more efficient, Stephen, I even think John, I saw this clips of John Bonham early days. He's like, wow, it's like first TV show. Then after a while, he hits hard, but after a while, he'd just be like, I think maybe he figured it out. I don't know, but I've heard Jimmy Page talk about he just would, flip it. He's an animal, but not that much of an, he's got a lot of finesse in his playing, but Yeah, you learn it. The cardio thing really, really helps. And everyday life, for that matter, but definitely. Trying to stay up. I'm trying to keep up to the kids, man.
I think we covered a lot of material here. AJ, is there anything else you wanted to bring up while we have Russ?
Yeah, if you were, obviously right now you have a pretty neat thing going on with you and Ray and Scott, but what would be your dream band? How they usually ask people, what would be your dream car? What would be your dream band if you got to pick 4 or 5 guys to play with
Wow.
to make a record with?
Wow, that's not a hard one. I have to think about that for a second, but yeah, I don't know, because I like some of this different stuff, Like I play with like that, like Strange Folk for about 10 years, I think, in the interim, and I love their songwriting. I just was listening to some of that stuff the other day, trying to, I think if anything, I don't know who the musicians would be, but with that Zzebra band, that was my dream band. I mean, so was Tab. But Tab is too, really. It really, if everybody says nobody knows my playing, like, what do you sound like? I'm just go listen to some Trey records, man. That's definitely, or it's Solely Monday now too. But God, I have to think about that for other players. But yeah, but that would be kind of like an Afro beat rock kind of funky Afro beat kind of thing, because. If that answers your question. I wish Zzebra has a couple of albums on Polydor, but I'm not on him because that was the London band. I was on the American band, but
you were on Polydor.
No, but the band was before I joined them, and then they came to America, and it wasn't they weren't on that label anymore. But remember Polydor Records? That's an old label.
The person that we just interviewed last. He was on Polydor with his band, Brett Alexander of the Badleys. They were also on Polydor too.
Wow.
So that's kind of funny that you got that. We just talked about him.
That's funny. I don't even know who was put out by. That's funny. I those labels, they've gone to the wayside, but
sure.
But, I'm gonna think. I wish I could give you an answer. There's so many musicians I love to play with too, but it's like, who would it be, man? I don't know.
I know it's a tough one. I know it's tough. I just figured I'd ask you to see what maybe some guys have an exact answer to that.
Yeah. Well, I feel very lucky that I play with a lot of players that I really love playing with.
Sure.
So it's already like, especially with Ray, we got together Friday and we were just working on some new stuff, and it's like, this is like amazing. I feel like, because we haven't done it in 3 months too, but it was like, it's just like, I feel like, the older I get, and it's the more too, it's like, this is what I need, what we do is what I need to be doing, And I do a fair amount of recording with other people's songwriters, and I love that too, because I play with this wonderful songwriter, Mary Amsterberg from Boston. We had a band called The Natives, and all the great stuff she wrote, so it's so much great music to play,
Absolutely.
One more thing I wanted to ask about is
sure.
A lot of guys in major bands, when they do a solo thing, and I'm referring to Trey here, when they do a solo thing, they're not really interested in having a democratic situation. It's their thing, and they hire the players. Maybe sometimes there's a musical director or something like that even.
Yeah.
But I noticed, it seems like you guys kind of there's a reason certain people were picked for that band, but how would you kind of describe just the leadership coming from Trey there? Like, how would you describe him as a band leader and his openness to, having you guys put your 2 cents in with stuff?
Yeah, well, I think it's more like, it's funny. I was listening to this drummers podcast, and this guy was talking about playing, like, some people like to use musicians and get rid of them, but this is more like a family band. It's like and I think you build a band up. And I think with Trey, he's got a lot, sometimes he has the idea in his head, like what songs should be, and you got to search for that. Sometimes you have it and it's already there, but it's song to song, really, which is cool. Like, that song, I don't know if you know that new song, Set Your Soul Free.
Yeah.
It's a great song. We was trying different beats, and James came in with one, and then everything worked, but it was still what he wasn't looking for. It's like, what is he looking for, And then with a smile on my face, and then one day he one sentence, like, oh, I got it. So it's like you work together, or he might have some, like my proudest moment with that first Trey album was Alive Again. He had that boom, go back, he had that beat. It fit right with the bass and all that. And I was like, but what happens if you do the cowbell? And like, so it's like, yeah, do that, you know. So it's like, you know, you put your little, put your little 2 cents in there. So it's cool, you know. And if he doesn't like it, you move on. And you can't get, you know. But he's got a vision, which is wonderful, you know. You know, but you know, he likes the way everybody plays. So you figure it out, man.
Russ, is there anything else you wanted to mention? Any other projects you're working on or things you're hoping to get to once the world gets back somewhat to normal?
Other than just doing this this Lamp album, Ray and I are hoping to record this summer, and then whatever. And I guess I'll just give myself a little plug. I'm not like a big songwriter, but I put out these little singles on iTunes and stuff, and Spotify under my name. And then I just little rock songs, you know. I write a little bit on the guitar, and it's fun. I did a bunch of my Within and banged out a bunch of stuff, and then I've been talking about saying who your dream band or whatever. I've been getting some of my friends to play on them that I really care about. And, you know, even one of my friends that I've known since I was in high school, like, hey, what are you doing, man? Put some guitar on this, you know? So that's been really fun. And, you know, I'm not super prolific, but, you heard the Red Room stuff. Those are my songs.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
Matter of fact, I just re-recorded that song, Too Quick to Judge, with these guys. We're going to put it out. And then that song, I don't know. I wanted to release that. I get a new version of that one because I think that, you know, whatever, but play with these other guys. But just trying to stay creative, you know. And I do sessions if ever needs anybody. No. And I teach too, and I love to do Skype lessons, and I do it all. You know, I try to do it all, and it's great. And I appreciate you guys, you know, coming down. I remember talking to you at River Street. And I remember that exactly where I was, right by the stage. I remember that. That's cool. I appreciate that stuff. I don't take any of that lightly, man. Just fact that I'm still at it, man. I'm just very, very happy.
Well, I really appreciate you too, Russ. And you know, like I said early on, I've always been a groove guy, and that's the supper you usually eat, man. And that I you know, I love your groove, and it's wonderful.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I'll leave you with one thing. I'll leave you with that, talking about that we used to play at Allentown a lot, and Bethlehem and Easton with that Zzebra band, and we had like a little circuit, New Jersey, New York, and I remember one time, you know, talking about grooving and getting your butt kicked. He's like, my brother, man, he had the accent. I've said this story a million times. So like, I liked it when you first joined the band, man. You played nice and simple, man. And I remember going, oh my God, I'm going to lose this gig, you know. But it really whipped me into shape because you know, you get too comfortable with the music, you know, and all of a sudden you're like, I know the song. And it's almost like, it was better when I was a little nervous, you know, and just kept on point. But that was like another lesson, you know, as a drummer to drummer, you know. Keeping the groove going.
Yeah,
especially
man.
with that band, all the integral parts, man. It's like, woo. You have to keep the parts going. Yeah, man.
Well, thank you very much, Russ.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Again. This was great. A lot. All right. We'll hope to see you out there in real life soon.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll be out with Lamp on Sunday, Monday.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, man. Take care.